excited to have you here. So my name is Kodani, as you've heard Tawanda say. I'm a volunteer in African Leaders in Aviation, which was co-founded by myself and Yasha, who will shortly introduce herself shortly. So briefly, excuse me, ALA is an organization that seeks to strengthen and empower aviation in the African continent. We don't have enough information, we don't have enough scholarships. So we're the guys who want to be the big brothers, the big sisters, and push information where there isn't information, bring more light and enlighten people more about the aviation industry. And this was birthed from our struggles trying to get into the industry and having to fight the system. So we want to fill in the gaps where we can and help our brothers and our sisters to maneuver and navigate their way through aviation much easier and simpler than we did. So over to you, Nyasha, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nyasha Manyika, co-founder of African Leaders in Aviation. I'm trying to connect my video, you should see me soon. As Kodani has said, we decided to put together this NPO so we could empower the next generation and even others who may have wanted to be in the aviation field, but they didn't have the know-how. So we decided to put this together so we can empower our fellow brothers and sisters, which is what we're excited about today. We're going to be learning about drones. Kodani and I are both fixed wing pilots, but today we're going to be entering unknown territories, and we're really, really excited about this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nyasha. And with no further ado, please, Tawanda, who will be assisting us today. He's also a volunteer in ALA. Tawanda, actually, we're just joking. There's two Tawandas today. We have Tawanda, the drone guy, which will shortly introduce himself, and Tawanda, who also helps us in African Leaders in Aviation. So now I'm addressing the African in Aviation, Tawanda. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tawanda Kadenge. I'm also a fixed wing pilot. I'm a volunteer in African Leaders in Aviation. I'm an enthusiast of seeing the African child, going to greater heights, defining category, and, reclaiming our place. We are not supposed to be where we are. We are supposed to be high up there and detecting what happens in the aviation industry. So guys, I'm strongly behind this. I'm strongly behind drones. I'm strongly behind fixed aircraft, rotary wing, anything which has to do with aviation. Aviation blood has to run in our blood. The aviation spirit has to run in this platform. Without wasting much of your time, I bring back to Cody so that she introduces us to our guest of honor.
Thank you. I am so excited to introduce the next person, Tawanda, the drone guy. We are very excited. We don't know much about the drone industry. We're going to learn and just be absorbing everything you tell us today. Please introduce yourself, what you're about, what you're doing.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you, Kodani. Thank you, Tawanda, and thank you, Nyasha, for having me on your platform this afternoon. My name is Tawanda. So today I'm Tawanda Jr. I have a more senior Tawanda who's with us. And I have much respect for the aviation industry and especially fixed wing and manned aviation. Being someone who I think from a young age, I wanted to be in the aviation space. And even just with what you shared, some of the issues, that prevent us from getting into the space are what we want to talk about today, is to help others. How do we get other people to get into the space? So I'm Tawanda Chihambakwe. I am a drone professional. And I think even as we talk, we'll define what that means. I'm also a licensed drone pilot, trained to actually operate multi-rotor and fixed wing aircraft. And that covers a wide spectrum and range of the types of drones that are available today. I'm involved in a number of different initiatives. We have a commercial drone service company that provides drone services, consultancy and training. Then we also have another division that we recently brought on board through a global partnership called Zimbabwe Flying Labs, which focuses on the social and humanitarian impact and use of drones within that space. So we're doing quite a number of different initiatives. I also started Drone Racing Zimbabwe, I think back in 2016. That was really my entry point into the industry, actually. So that's more on the recreational side. If you haven't looked at drone racing before, I definitely encourage you to do that. So that's me in a nutshell. And I think through that, we've been able to do quite a bit of work just in terms of trying to help and assist the growth of the local drone industry in Zimbabwe, but also across Africa, just through the different forums and opportunities that we've been able to have to connect with other drone operators around the world. That's me in a nutshell.
Wow, that's so much you're doing. I can't wait to hear all about it. Thanks and welcome, Tawanda. So I would like to first hear from, how do we get into that industry? How do you start the training? Where do you go? I think like training as a pilot, you have to first approach a school. Maybe is the theoretical theory exams, is the skills test. Please take us through how you get in and the highest level you can get in the drone industry.
Okay, great. Okay, so maybe just taking you a bit of a step back is looking at aviation. Drones fall under aviation, and that's why even we're talking on this platform, because drones are classified as unmanned aerial vehicles or unmanned aerial systems. So within the aviation context, it's important to have the broad base of understanding of how aviation works. Oftentimes when we talk about training, people don't realize what goes into training even for drone operators. It seems some of the things seem unnecessary, or people get surprised when we now talk about formal training. Similar to the aviation, so we look at similar to the manned aviation, sorry. When we look at the broad base, there's two sides that I see in the manned and unmanned aviation. You've got the commercial drone operations, right? So that's your airline pilots, and you've got cargo, you've got all sorts of things in the manned aviation. Then you also have, under that, you have the recreational side, right? Where people do model aircraft, they have different, things like microlights and small aircraft for sport, entertainment, and that kind of thing, right? Similarly, in the unmanned aviation or the drone space, we have the formal commercial drone arena, and then we have the recreational, which is what's classified as the FPV drone world, or FPV drone racing side of things. So when we look at how it's all formed, it all falls under the guidelines of how aviation is governed from country to country. And internationally, all aviation within probably most countries of the world are governed under what's called the International Civil Aviation Organization. So they lay out guidelines. It's called ICAO, for those who want to look that up. And that is something that most countries in the world subscribe to. In the US, they have what's called the FAA, I think USA and Canada. They have the FAA, that's the Federal Aviation Administration. So they have a different guideline. Now, most of the countries you can think of that, whether it's the UK or most African countries, almost all of them, and even Asian countries, they fall under ICAO rules. So they set out the guidelines of how should drones be operated and integrated into the aviation space, and how is aviation run. Now with that, they govern the commercial side as well as the recreational side. Now, when you look at drones, you've got to look at it from a country specific kind of situation, where you look at what are the rules and regulations that govern the use of any aircraft in your country. Now, I'm based in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, we have drone regulations. So we have a statutory instrument or legal guideline that really stipulates how drones are used. Our laws are not unique to Zimbabwe, but they're similar to what other countries under ICAO have in terms of their rules and regulations. So the process to do that now, when you talk about training, the training aspects come from the rules and the regulation. How should people be trained to operate the drones? Okay. There's also a statutory instrument, and I keep saying statutory instrument, that's really a legal the law, in a sense, right? In the local kind of legal framework, the law requires that for anyone who is going to operate a drone, all right, for hire or reward, in other words, for commercial purposes, and commercial can be low grade to your full on, kind of, larger operations. They need to be trained and licensed. Now, they can only receive training from what we call an approved training organization. So in other words, you and I can't just wake up today and say, look, we want to start a training school, regardless of the experience, regardless of how much experience we have, there are guidelines around how a training school should be structured, organized, run, and what the training curriculum should be. Same thing with the drone space. So in that regard, the license for training schools is given by the regulator in that specific country. In ours, it's a Civil Aviation Authority. So for you to get a license, then what it ultimately means is you must go to a school that is approved by your local Civil Aviation to offer that training, which then allows you to get a license. The license itself, after you've done your training from the training school, the license itself is issued by the Civil Aviation Authority in your country. And the jurisdiction around where that license works. So if you get your license in Zimbabwe, is it transferable? Now that now goes back up to that level of ICAO, right? Where now it's, okay, the guidelines that your country has set out, do they match another country? Okay. Now, if you're an airline pilot, right, like Tawanda Senior, okay, if he gets his license in South Africa, for him to come to Zimbabwe and operate here, fair and fine, he understands how to operate the plane because it doesn't change. The plane doesn't change whether you're in Zimbabwe or South Africa. However, the rules of the air in the airspace, okay, is what changes. So when he comes to Zimbabwe with that license, now he must do what we call conversion exams, which then, and through that, he's then taught about the things that like air law, for example, and meteorology, right, would be key for him to learn in the Zimbabwean context, even though he has the skill set of operating the aircraft. Okay, same thing with drones. Now, I don't want to go too far, but I think that maybe just sums up in terms of training. In terms of the length of training, the time that it takes to get training. A lot of people ask, oh, how long? How long does it take to get trained? Okay. For manned aviation, the standard, it's like, I think it's 3 months, normally 3 to 4 months for your PPL if you go full time. And then from there you can go and, focus on building your hours. When it comes to drones in the drone space, depending on the school you go to, right? On average, it takes normally 3 weeks, okay? 2 to 3 weeks of actual in-class or practical training for you to get to a place where you can then pass and then submit your documentation for licensing, okay? 3 weeks. Now, those 3 weeks may not be week after week after week. What happens is that in between, there are other things that you probably need to do, okay? So, for example, my training, okay? The first week, we had 8 days of theory training, okay? Then we wrote the exams after that, okay? Then we had to wait till the end of the other week and then start the following week if you want to do practical, if you've passed your theory, okay? In between that and over and above that, you also have, when you've done your theory and you've done your practical, right? So that might be this week into next week is your theory. Then you skip the rest of the days because you can't start immediately. Then the following week. So already that's 3 weeks. Okay, we've counted. Then you also have to do what's called a restricted radio license. Okay, you need a radio license, right? And that's a communication tool that is standard within aviation. Okay, and that's important so that because you're operating a drone and a drone operates in airspace with other aircraft, helicopters, small aircraft, large aircraft, you must be able to communicate with other pilots. So it's important that the drone pilots also know and understand that, okay, because we're operating in the same airspace. So you need to get a restricted radio license. That restricted radio license the training is done normally, or the exam for that is done directly by the Civil Aviation. The training school that does the drone training doesn't do that, okay? So that you have to do outside of that. You also have to do what's called an aviation medical exam. And again, this is standard for aviation. You have to have an aviation medical exam. Now for aviation, if you're a pilot, they might, and there's different classes of medical exams. So the higher the class number, or the lower the class number. So if it's a class 1, it means it's a really, really difficult exam, a really strict medical exam that they do. Okay, if you do a class 2, class 3, class 4. So I think it goes up to class 4. Okay. When I got trained, they had just shifted from asking for class 4 to a class 3 medical exam. And it's a thorough exam, which then tests your ability and your physical health. And people are like, what? For drones? You know what I mean? And it's important for context, because when you get licensed to operate a drone, they're not saying they're licensing you to operate just the normal kind of smaller drones. When you get licensed, you're being trained to operate from the small ones all the way up to the larger fixed wing kind of drones that are then used either for cargo deliveries, that are used to drop all sorts of payloads, and that can, that in themselves are quite large, and some are even the size of small aircraft now. Okay. So they're not looking at a drone pilot as being someone who's just flying a small drone with a camera in front of it. They're trying to equip and give the skills to the drone operator so that they can operate across all the different kind of spectrum and future, right? And future proofing for any other drones that will come out. All right. So that's why things like the medical aviation, the aviation medical exam is quite important to do. I remember doing my aviation medical exam, and initially I failed it. Okay, I'll tell you straight. I failed my medical, and I failed my medical purely because I had issues. I've got a pre-existing history of asthma when I was, young and that kind of thing. So when I was doing the lung test, right? So they test your lung capacity. I wasn't able to meet the required standard. I just missed it, and they wouldn't compromise. They would not compromise. I'm like, but I'm just flying drones. I'll be okay. And they're like, nope. So I had to get onto medication. The doctor actually gave me medication and different things, exercise that I had to do. And I had to wait a month. Do you see what I mean? So now the process of me getting my license took longer, because without the aviation medical, I'm not allowed to do my practical. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? So now the process, it's easy for me to say it's 3 weeks, but the truth is you need to pass your actual tests. You need to make sure you pass your aviation medical, and granted, most of you will pass it, okay? But if you have anything like, high blood pressure, all these other things, they will pick those up, and those things could be flagged as issues. But the process in itself can really be, the people that I've heard who've done it the quickest have done it in 4 weeks. Got their license from zero to having a license, well, not having a license, to being able to submit your documentation for licensing in 4 weeks. I've heard people can do that. Your radio exam is also not an easy thing, okay? And I think even Tawanda Senior will tell you that it's not you need to study, you need to really learn and understand for you to get your radio license. And if you get it the first time, you know what, I will buy you lunch, all right? And if you go get your license and you get your radio license the first time around, I will buy you lunch, okay? It's that interesting, okay? That restricted radio exam. So that's it on training. Open to, I guess, to ask the next question. I talk too much, guys, so you have to be careful.
No, please, we're here for that. So everyone, if you're going for this license, put that note down. I would like to believe Tawanda is a man of his word. Lunch, free lunch, anyone could eat, right? So study hard, get that free lunch. So I have so many questions I've jotted down, but I would like to give a chance to Nyasha and Tawanda Senior to, I know they have some few questions as well to ask you. And ladies and gentlemen, we will have a Q&A session at the end. We'll give you guys enough time to ask as many questions you'd like to ask. Over to you. I'll start ladies first, maybe.
Tawanda, I wanted to find out, what is the job market like after you're done with this training?
Okay.
And what is the cost implication of getting this license?
Okay, yeah. So in terms of the market opportunities for drones, drones are still considered, or the drone industry is still considered an emerging industry from a global perspective. So what that means is that most people are still learning about the different applications and how drones can be used, and we're still discovering different use cases for drones. So because of that discovery process, it means there are jobs within the drone industry that are still yet to be created, okay? What exists right now is a country-specific focus or continental-specific focus, right? South Africa has I would say, a robust drone industry. They have structures, they have the regulations in place, they have training schools in place, etc. So already the opportunities that are there, the baseline is if you then get your drone pilot license, you can go on to be an instructor, for example, okay? Because the training schools are there and there's a need for that, right? So you could be a drone pilot instructor, and that's, you know, at a baseline. Then also, when you look at the structure of commercial drones and commercial drone industry, when you're operating drones, right, in a given context, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Kenya, for example, right, those countries, the regulations are in a way, or have been stipulated in a way that the drone pilot, the operator, is similar, again, similar to manned aviation. You as the pilot can be licensed to operate the drone. However, for you to then operate the drones or the aircraft in that space, you need to be attached to an airline company, okay, or an aviation company. In the manned aviation space, I think it's an in Zimbabwe, it's called an air operator's certificate. So in other words, the company that you work for has to be licensed to use drones, or the company that you start has to be licensed to use drones. You can, in other words, you cannot just come out of a space where you get your license, you start your company and you start operating drones. Your company itself needs to have been licensed to operate small aircraft or unmanned aerial vehicles. Okay, so what that provides in terms of opportunities is that if you then get your license, it's one of the steps that allow you to then set up your own drone company. So you could set up your own drone business, okay, and then pursue that route through the civil aviation. There's a lot of different guidelines for that. Then if you just are saying, look, I've got my license, I don't really want to set up my own company, you can then now go and seek to be attached to or work for or work with a licensed drone company, okay, which has what we call a remote operator certificate, or an ROC. And this is specific, and I'm using specific terms that are specific for South Africa, but are copied in Zimbabwe. So in Zimbabwe, it's the same thing. In Kenya, it's the same thing, for example. And we go like that. So now in that regard, you can then work for that company, whatever that company will be involved with, you are then part and parcel, you're the drone operator. Then looking at other avenues is if you are then an independent drone operator, you could then pursue, work directly with a general kind of company in any one of the following industries. If you look at agriculture, there's a growing use case application for drones in that space. And agriculture is important because that is really a mainstay for countries across Africa, okay, Zimbabwe, South Africa, etc. Now in that space, you could be a licensed drone operator who then works for a large farming corporation, or maybe a commercial farmer, or one of the people in the value chain, like the seed producers, or people who are involved with developing and distributing pesticides. So you can be now a drone operator who then is involved in aerial mapping, for example, or using drones to gather data and insights that help farmers and farming operations to make data-driven decisions. So there's a growing use case in that. Or you can be involved in crop spraying. So then what you'd have to do as a drone pilot, you'd have to then seek further training on how to do crop spraying in that context. So you've got your license, you then get further training on crop spraying and understanding the different pesticides and all that kind of stuff. The jobs in there are still being created. There's very few people, very, very few people in that space across Africa. Okay, very, very, very few. So that's still a lot of potential in that space, whether you're South Africa, whether you're Zimbabwe. As far as I know, in South Africa, there's only 2 ROC holders or ROC companies that are licensed to operate agricultural drones in South Africa. 2, right, that have actually been authorized to do, and this is specific for crop spraying drones. The other type of drones for agriculture, they can do that, but for crop spraying, only 2 that I know of. In Zimbabwe, they're none. Okay, in Kenya, they're none, right, as we speak right now. So there's opportunities in agriculture, and then a common one that people look at is mining. And mining is talked about a lot because the mining industry quickly saw the value of bringing and integrating drone technology into operations because of the ability to again, use the drone to gather data and insights that helps them to do their work a lot more efficiently, faster, work that was previously done by surveyors and that kind of thing, a lot of it or parts of it can be done now using drones. Okay, and additional things that we weren't able to do. Stockpile measurements, volumetric measurements, doing assessments of different dumps and all sorts of things that they have on mines, okay? Doing blast monitoring, so when they do explosions or whatever, they have to monitor that. They have to also monitor the impact of the operations on the environment around them, etc. Also doing security and surveillance on mines. So they use drones also for security and surveillance. And in Zimbabwe alone, in fact, since the beginning of the year, I've had 3 mining companies reach out to me asking and saying, okay, we're looking for a drone pilot to hire specifically to do surveillance on the mines, as well as to support their security teams, right? This is Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe is now waking up to, wow, okay, drones can be used for this and for that. In South Africa, it's probably advanced a bit more, but there's still opportunities. It's not a saturated market. It's not a space where we can say, don't go into this because there's too many people in it. Okay, so those are just some of the things. Agriculture, mining, you can look at construction infrastructure. We can talk about telecoms. I don't know anyone involved in telecoms or doing it seriously, where they're using drones to actually monitor cell towers and that kind of thing, which is a very, very good use case. I know Vodacom, you've got Vodacom in South Africa, right? Yes, Vodacom did a research project 2019. In fact, they started 2018. They did a research project in proof of concept where they were actually looking at integrating drones into operations. So they are one of the first companies to do that, but they still don't have license to operate drones in that way. But they've got all the research and the testing for that. In the future, mobile companies, that will be a standard way to actually assess and monitor their cell towers. No longer will you be sending teams out to climb up and do all sorts of assessments. There's no need for that anymore. So those are opportunities. And like I said, and I have to reiterate, there are still jobs to be created that we don't even know yet in this space. And I must also say, I've only focused on just the drone pilot. However, there are other opportunities for people to get into the drone industry without having to be the pilot. The drone pilot is one role in the whole scope of the industry. There are other roles in that space that you could also pursue if you want to get involved in drones.
I was actually reading an article about 2 days ago, and I saw that, I think it's in Ghana, that they're using drones to deliver COVID-19 vaccines, like in inaccessible areas. And you can actually see that there's lots of potential and growth in this industry.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Tawanda. I think from your explanation, I picked maybe something which is very pertinent, especially to the reason why we are here as African leaders in aviation. You talked about there are a lot of areas which are yet to be explored. We can maybe employ remotely piloted aircraft or drones. This is entrepreneurship. I think something maybe people who are in this room who have joined this meeting, you need to explore much on this one, because it talks of volumes. You might start up as a drone pilot, but you end up maybe as a CEO or something bigger than that, or maybe a multinational because you just started from drones. My other question is, aviation we've considered to be an area for the elite. Are there any educational qualifications that are required for me, to be a drone pilot?
Yeah, so yeah, the requirements to actually be a drone pilot is you need to have just base level kind of education. In South Africa, it's matric. In Zimbabwe, it's your O levels. Okay, so, and when I say O levels, you basically need to be able to read and write. It's not to say maths and English. It's just, it's just a basic standard, that's what you need. And it's important to have that. Because when you go through the training, there's a lot of, you guys know in terms of aviation, when we do our training course, when you're talking about meteorology, navigation, all that kind of stuff, you've got to kind of, be able to at least read and write. The rest you can figure out. The advantage is if you've done things like geography, great, that helps. If you've done physics, even better, that helps. but it's not a requirement for training. What is interesting though, and I think I didn't answer the other question Yasha had, was the cost. I think that the cost in terms of actually getting into the industry is actually a bit more, costs a bit more to get into the drone industry in Africa than it is in places like the United States or the UK. And the cost, really, you're looking at just the baseline cost. I think it would be good to look at a range of about maybe close to $2,000, $2,000 to $3,000 to be safe. Is what you should budget for if you want to get your remotely piloted aircraft systems license or your drone pilot license. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Nyasha, Tawanda, Senior, are we good?
Yeah, we are good. Yeah, there's something about Tawanda, that we forgot, to talk about when you started this meeting. Tawanda is also an author. He wrote a book, which is an Amazon-based bestseller book. Are you in a position to divulge anything pertaining to that book, Tawanda?
Yes, I'm in a position to let you know everything about that. So I was, I think through our work that we've been doing over the last few years in the drone industry, we've connected with a number of different, a lot of the pioneers and the leaders within the drone industry itself, and just forums and forums that we've been on, and things that we've been doing outside of the borders of Zimbabwe. I was privileged enough to have been invited to co-author a book on the drone profession as we look at defining what it is to actually be a professional in this space. And that really is touching on a lot of the things that I've just been sharing about, is to say, let's look beyond just, okay, I want to be a drone pilot. There's so many other things within the industry. There's a lot of also, there's a need for us to actually see it and recognize it first as an industry, not just as a drone is a tool to take photos and videos and that kind of thing. So in the book, we published Drone Professional 1 last year, and we're just so grateful that it became an Amazon bestseller. It was really popular within the aviation industry globally. And in there, I think that I wrote a chapter and I was able to contribute just information, just on what's been happening in Zimbabwe, across Africa. We also then recently published the second version of it, Drone Professional 2, which launched about 3 weeks ago. And that's also become a bestseller, just thanks to people like you buying and being interested in the space. And in this book now, the first book had 16 authors, the second one has 21 authors. And it's not necessarily the same people, but I was invited to ask to write again. And in the book, I think the second one of the things I'm sharing about is, and I can see the heart of even just the work that Tawanda and Nyasha and Kodani are doing, is where is Africa in all of this innovation? Where is Africa in terms of the growth of the drone industry? Why is it that we celebrate companies? And I'll tell you straight, I'm someone who will talk straight, like companies like Zipline. Right. A lot of people who are in the drone industry would know Zipline. Zipline is the world's leading emergency or medical drone delivery company. Okay. They developed their platform and they're the ones involved in Ghana, like what Nyasha mentioned. They're now in Nigeria. They've recently just moved into Nigeria now. They started in Rwanda. So if you heard about drones in Rwanda, it was Zipline. And Zipline is an American company. So they came to Africa. And the backstory to that is that they came to Africa because they were not allowed to do the testing and development in their own home country. So the American aviation industry was like, no, you're not going to test that here. We care about our people. You can't have you flying over our people, property, whatever. Don't do it here. So they came to Africa. Africa says, welcome, come. We're open arms, because it makes African governments look good. So they come, they develop, they test. The jobs now, right, that are actually the people who are actually building those drones, and all the proprietary software, the systems, the batteries, all that, all those jobs are in America. They're not in Africa. What's in Africa are the operators. So they've trained drone pilots, and you've got maybe a manager in the local context, right? So you're getting this number of jobs, but the knowledge transfer of how do you actually do that is sitting in America. It's not here. They're not doing knowledge transfer and say, come, Rwandan people, let's teach you about how to do this. No, that's not happening. but yet we praise them and we say, oh, look, it's amazing, it's amazing, it's amazing, rather than looking at it and saying, okay, they're doing that. There is no downstream value. And if you look at it yourself and do research, you'll find that the Rwandan drone economy, drone system, isn't great. There aren't other big innovations going on in the drone space in Rwanda outside of this American company, right? So that means, you know, and some of those issues are regulations. And from a base level, you must know, okay, Zipline went in there. They didn't go in there with licensed drone pilots. They went in there as technology developers, okay? And they were given exemptions by the government to basically do whatever they wanted. Now you as a local Rwandan in that country will be governed based on regulations. So for you to even want to innovate like these other countries, they'll tell you, no, are you licensed? Do you have this, do you have that? But you let the Americans in and let them do whatever they want. Yeah, well, that's that. So there's a lot of that going on. And the big push is that, you know, for me, I'm like, one of the things I don't want to see is a lot of Africans, I want to get my pilot license so I can go work for someone. I want to get my pilot license so I can do this. We need to get in that space like you're sharing, Tawanda, is the entrepreneurship aspect. Because it's still emerging, we have a chance to establish ourselves. We have a chance to actually position ourselves, right? To be able to be running these kind of things. And you may not be able to do it yourself, but let's partner, let's work together, let's collaborate, let's bring together skill sets and say, right, when it comes to manufacturing, even the basics, let's pick one aspect of the whole drone. When it comes to manufacturing, just even maybe the propellers or, you know, the batteries, let's establish and say, Africa, we're going to set up our own battery manufacturing plant or propeller manufacturing thing. So anyone who wants propellers and that kind of thing, or, you know, for their drones, whatever type of drones, they'll get them here. We won't be looking to China. We won't be looking to America for all this kind of stuff. We're not waiting for them to bring the solutions. We're doing it ourselves. So there's a lot of room in there for drone manufacturing, for software development, right? For things like training and education, right? And I'm not going to discount the work that needs to be put into that, but the opportunities are glaring. As long as we are trying to look beyond just, I need a job, right? If we can go out of that and see the opportunity and say, look, 5 years, 10 years from now, this is what it looked like, and this will be our piece of the cake in the whole drone industry.
Sure. I'm glad you touched on that because, like you said, this is the heart for Nyasha, Tawanda, and I when we started African Leaders in Aviation. Really, it's the heart for Africans. What is our piece of the pie, like you said, in this aviation industry? We know it's one of the richest industries, but it's so difficult to get in. It's so heavily gate-kept. And the information isn't there. We had to go to flight schools, airports, and find information. And even then we were done so wrong. So hence we're like, okay, we've paid the price. We don't want the next generation to have to also struggle the way we did. So it's not so comfortable to say these things because it sounds a little bit political, but how difficult is it really? Like Tawanda said, it seems like it's for the elite. You must have money because aviation generally, it is an expensive industry to get into. Is it easy to get? Number A, my access for drone information was the internet and, you know, social media. But where does one go? Do you just go to an airport? And when you go to an airport, where do you go? And once you've got that information, is it easy? Is it welcoming? Do you need to know people to get in and get ahead? Please just elaborate more on that and prepare us, those who want to start maybe seek out the opportunity, prepare us honestly. What can we, obviously there's advantages and disadvantages, but please just give us an idea of how it is.
Yeah, so I think to answer that is, maybe the best way I can answer is to understand the context of where you're operating or where you want to operate. The situational analysis is very important. And I guess I'll give you an example. If you want to operate drones in South Africa, right, you must understand the landscape that you're in. And South Africa, and this is the way it is. South Africa is actually harder to break into the drone industry than it is in Zimbabwe, purely because of of how advanced that South Africa has gone with it and how they've implemented the regulations and the structure of the industry. And in itself, that's a good thing for those who have gotten in, because they can derive value from it, right? Because the barrier to entry it's there. Now, the barrier to entry depends on how you want to get in. So like I mentioned, you can be the drone pilot, you can be involved in data analysis. So when drone pilots go out and they do what we call mapping, and mapping can be in agriculture and mining and land surveying and all sorts of different things, right? They bring data, that data needs to be analyzed, processed and analyzed. So you can be someone who just analyzes data. You don't need a license to learn how to analyze data, but that's an entry point into the drone industry, okay? If you choose, I want to go drone pilot, then you must subscribe to the requirements for a drone operator or a drone pilot, okay? In other words, go get your license, and then you also need to obviously invest in your own drone. And buying a drone, as we know, if it's gonna be a good drone, the barrier to entry is there. Drones are upwards of, I mean, a good drone is upwards of $1,000 US. So you've got that barrier to entry. If you want to go on the education side, okay? Education doesn't necessarily mean just a drone pilot instructor, but you can be involved in other education programs. Like I mentioned, after you've gotten your drone pilot license, you still need further training on how to use drones in agriculture, all right? Aerial mapping, data processing, etc. You don't need a license to be able to train people on how to do that. So you can be someone who trains the licensed pilots on how to use drones in a specific sector or use case. Those are opportunities. So that's what I'm saying, the context is very important. How do you want to approach getting into the industry, right? My approach, because I started with the actual drones themselves, right? And with drone racing, then moving into commercial. I'll tell you right now, right? When I moved from, when I was in the drone racing side of things, I had maybe about 13 or 14 racing drones, which is great. 2 of them we built ourselves, etc. That's great. When you move on to commercial, the cost to buy one, all right? And I think the first one was a Phantom 4 Pro back in 2017, something like that, right? Or 18, early 2018. The cost for that landed price, where you bought it and you paid the duties, because you must pay the duty. Don't try and not pay the duty and the tax. You're looking at close to 3,000, about 2.5 to 3,000 US dollars. That's not an easy amount, right? To actually invest into. So I actually had to start, and this is what I started another business. I was already doing drone racing. I wasn't earning money from that. And then I had to start a side business. I was fully employed at the time. I had to start a side business to then get the money to invest it in buying a drone. So it wasn't just a click over. I actually had to do that. But that's how serious I was about getting into space. So sometimes you've got to find, and I mean, if I had at the time a partner, or if I had a synergy or someone at the same level at that time, it could have been like, okay, let's join our monies together and do this, okay? Or you could partner, you as a drone pilot, if you're already a pilot, or if you want a pilot, partner with someone who's a data analyst and say, right, I'm going to pursue the licensing operating. Let me also work with you. You are going to pursue the data. So you learn everything to do with data processing and the drones, so that we can then come together. And when the time is right, we'll start a company together. I'll do the flying, you do the processing. Then you grow together like that. So for me, I'm like, okay, the only way, to be honest, that we're going to be able to grow, one is information sharing, just like we're having on this platform. And platforms like African Leaders in Aviation is very important, because this is information sharing. So hopefully now you know a bit more about it. That will help you to decide your context, decide how do you want to approach this? Where do I want to enter? Okay, then you need to look for all the information around that before you then make a decision and say, okay, you must always count the cost. Look at the cost. What is it going to cost me to go this way or this route? Drone pilot cost me X amount. If I do drone data analysis, this amount. If I go education route, this amount. If I decide to work for a drone company, in some cases, you can actually go and work with a drone company or a company that is wanting drone services, and they can pay for your training. That's another thing you could do. If you're employed right now, maybe your company should be using drones. You can motivate your company to say, right, guys, and how you can approach it. Guys, it's very important to be compliant. Compliance is very important. The regulations are 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need people licensed. So then they're like, oh, okay, fine, we'll pay for you to get licensed. You know what I mean? And you've been able to get the skill. Because once you have the skill, it's yours. Whether you leave the company or stay, it's yours. So, there's different ways to approach it.
So all I'm hearing is plan, 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 get information and plan for it. Don't just go ahead first and get stuck as you go. So I think now we're ready for Q&A. Open the platform for everyone else to ask questions. Everyone, you can either write in the chat, you can on the chat option, or just unmute yourself and ask a question.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry. Did you have mentors? What kept you going? Because I can see the energy, the drive is there. It's just, yeah, what just kept you going? The passion, how did you keep it going? Because I know there were hurdles along the way. I'm sure disappointments, failing the medical, all that. What kept you going? Do you have mentors? Do you have a schedule do you meditate? Do you gym, or what just keeps you on this right frequency that just keeps you going? You stay innovative, you're writing books. Wow, I want to be like you when I grow up. What's the secret?
I wish there was a secret like going to the gym. Hopefully I'll be able to do that when I'm earning a lot more money. I'd love to go to the gym. No, to be honest, for me, my experience getting into the space and seeing, it was really vision and seeing where things are going. At the time that I got into the space and started seeing the potential of it, there was little to nothing going on in a local context. So there was no one to look to that I could say, oh, this person's doing this and I'm inspired. And no, there was nothing like that happening, right? But I then looked further afield, and a lot of the work that I do, I base a lot of things I do on research. So research is a very important thing that I encourage people to do. Whatever you want to do, make sure you do the research and you're thorough about it. So in doing that, I then started connecting with other people around the world at the time who were doing different things, okay? So when you see someone else doing something there, you're like, oh, that's exciting. And then you localize it and say, oh, okay, so this is what the future of the industry could look like if we did A, B, C, D. You see what I mean? And then started saying, okay, look, guys, there's a lot of conversations going on about regulations. Then I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go and speak to civil aviation, find out what are we doing about regulations? Oh, we don't have regulations. Oh, okay, cool. So who do we need to speak to? And then we started going and engaging the Minister of Transport and, that kind of thing. Oh, okay, cool. We've got a movement going, So all those kind of things, it was really drawing from what I was seeing other industry players around the world doing, and then trying to see that, okay, a big motivation of mine was to say, we cannot be left behind as a country. I refuse to allow us to be the consumers of the technology, right? We're too happy to be like, oh, the new drone has come out. That's amazing. Oh, look how wonderful it is. No, enough of that, okay? Why aren't we making our own, right? Those are the kind of conversations we're having. We've got really intelligent people coming out of schools, universities, technical people, but unless they are directed in terms of their energy towards, guys, we can actually do this, then it just remains, and we just remain in that space, and the drone industry will become another industry where we are just on the receiving end. So I then put myself in situations, and I think the way I keep myself motivated really is looking and seeing at the future, right? I'm really, my heart is really big on education, on sharing information, and also especially on young people. So we're actually in the process of rolling out programs that are going into schools now, where we're going to be teaching drones as a tool for STEM education, right? So now we can actually teach science, math subjects, and all that kind of stuff using drones, and coding, programming. We're going to be bringing and integrating all that, because now I'm seeing that, okay, the best way to, and like you asked, the best way for us to determine what the future would look like is if we create the base. If we empower young people, that means for sure, for me, someone who's 16 coming out of your O levels, right? Because that's only as far as you should go. A level is only for those who need to. But I did my A levels, but I don't encourage everyone to do it. But by the time you're 16, imagine if we have a movement of young people who are coming out at 16 years old, right? The people who are growing up with the technology, who understand how to fly, how drones are used in different contexts, how to build their own, how to code and program. Do you see what I'm saying, right? Now we're creating a whole different kind of economy when you're coming out and there's no discovery. Like, we're discovering, we're adopting the technology. But if a 16-year-old knows how to do all these things, then we can say, right, we have a problem in agriculture in this situation. We have a problem with our healthcare system. We need to deliver these kind of things. let's build our own, let's develop our own. It's easier because the baseline skills are there. And I think that's really what motivates me and pushes me to say, let's keep going.
So, wow.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Nita.
No, I'm just saying thank you for that.
We have a question for you, Tawanda, from Pride, I believe. They say, thank you, Tawanda, for the presentation. My question is, what are the opportunities in manufacturing or assembling of drones in Africa? Are there any assembly points or manufacturing companies in Africa at the moment? I think you can just touch on that point again quickly.
Yeah, so some of them that you can look at. In Rwanda, there's a company called Charis, C-H-A-R-I-S. They're in the process of building some fixed wing platforms. In Kenya, I think, is it Kenya or Ghana? There's one, it's called Soko, S-O-K-O Aerial. You should look out those guys. In South Africa, there is, okay, I'm looking at the guys who are at innovation stage. In South Africa, there's one that's called, okay, look for a lady called Queen Glovu. She runs, I think her business is called QEQ something manufacturing. So they're also manufacturing. There's another one run by Zimbabwe in South Africa there. He's actually in the process of working on stuff. One that's called Kurai, please Kurai, K-U-R-A-I. Then there's the bigger manufacturers in South Africa, your Alti, A-L-T-I. I think Aerobotics as well are doing something. So those guys are doing manufacturing. And then there's some other guys in Northern and West Africa. I'll have to just look on my platforms and I can share that information to anyone who wants to know. Then there's some other exciting stuff that's actually coming up, I think over the next year or so. There's some conversations we're having with some people doing some really amazing stuff. I can't talk about it yet, but yeah, we're gonna see some really exciting stuff from Africans developing some high level kind of platforms.
All right, thank you, Tawanda, for that.
Was that right? Okay. Any other person wants to ask the question?
Hi, so my name is AJ. I just had the pleasure of meeting Tawanda over WhatsApp. And Tawanda, my heart is still sort of like really raring for you to come over to Bulawayo, as you know. And just looking at what you were talking about, you know, looking beyond just being able to drive a drone or pilot a drone. My heart, as you know, is on the education side. And just wondering, you're talking about STEM, but how young are we looking at? You know, looking at one of your pictures on, the kids look like they're as young as like maybe 10 or so. But how young are you looking at starting introducing drones? I mean, kids know drones, but to actually take them through the process, would you have a separate program just to introduce at a younger level and then train them up so you get them more excited to actually you know, go for their certification?
Okay, thank you for that question, AJ. When we're looking at the STEM programs or drones and STEM education, we are in the process of actually developing a what we call learning outcomes. Okay, so we want to be able to get to a place where parents and teachers are comfortable integrating the technology because they see value at the end of, you know, the process. Okay, and as the regulations are developing more and more, in other countries, for example, you can pursue getting a drone pilot license at 16. Okay, in Zimbabwe, for example, it's still 18. So what we want to do is to try and marry and meet those two and say, okay, if we're going to roll out a program, yes, it can start at primary school, but we don't want them to lose the interest, okay? Because they will go through it, and by the time they're 14, we could get them to a place of 14 years old, know how to fly, code, and build, but then they can't do anything with it after that. Do you see what I mean? Because the regulations in the country are restricting them from going out and, you know, starting to operate and that kind of thing. So our programs right now, we've got two main kind of focuses. One is, yes, the primary level. So we are trying to reach out to young learners as young as 7 years old. That is probably our cutoff or starting point. So if you're 7 years old, what we're doing there is we're trying to just build the interest. Okay, we don't want to give them any technical things. We don't want to teach them coding and that kind of thing. But we're holding, for example, holiday camps, where we then bring them in, they come in for 2 hours, we teach them how to fly the drone, but we also start introducing things like safety, compliance, the same things they're going to be learning when they're getting their license, but we've just broken it down at a point where they can understand it and it becomes part of their thing. Then we're also teaching them ethics. So ethics is important from that starting point. Is okay, you can't be taking photos or videos without people's permission. You know what I mean? You've got to also seek permission if you want to fly in a certain area where you don't own the property, okay? And that kind of thing. So we're teaching them those things at that level and then just trying to keep their interest going. Then as we go and as we see what makes sense, we will then add things that are a bit more complicated. But if we're gonna reach like high school students, we'll by the time you're in high school now we can take you through everything and teach you coding and teach you all the different use case applications. We can even start building together and that kind of thing. So yeah, we're still developing, still rolling out, but we want to get them as young as possible.
Thanks so much for that. I really look forward to you coming through to Bulawayo. Thanks for this platform. Really amazing.
You're welcome.
Thanks, AJ, for the question. Thanks, Tawanda. Anyone else? The floor is open for you guys. Anyone? I don't see anyone.
Okay. Hi, guys.
Hello, pleasure.
Just have got a few questions. I've been hearing the whole conversation. Wow, it's very interesting. I just want to confirm if you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm a RPS pilot, but based in Cape Town. And I've been really, like when I heard about the drones, wow, it was something which was really, really mind-blowing now. And then now I've completed my radio test, my medicals, I've got signed out, I've got my license and everything. I actually have a drone that I have also. And then now when it came to like now job hunting or job searching, I can say, that's when, when we got into this period of COVID and things got closed and everything just, that in the industry just went a little bit quiet now. And then like when I started looking for employment, I can say, like I wanted to venture into agriculture. And then later on to realize like most companies or most agricultural firms, I can say something, correct me if I'm wrong also, like they have like certain qualifications. You can have your license, right? But, and then they can offer you employment, but then there's certain things that they need. Like, I can't just say like, I've got my drone license, maybe I've got my O-level, I've got my matric. And now they require things like, I was actually surprised, man. Like I realized that I had to do something called dangerous goods. And then I need to do resource crew management and AVEC also. Then I got myself thinking, so since I'm a remote, do I now need to do fixed wing? Do I need to do things like BVLOS also? It's another question. Also, can you help me? I'm just going to break down the questions because I talk a lot too much. And also, there's other thing that I saw, which is very interesting that I would want us or anyone to also help me out, like to set up something like a app, like let's say you can set up app which needs like drone pilots. Let's say like I'm a drone pilot, right? And maybe there's someone who is in need of a drone pilot, someone who's licensed and everything like that. Like may say a person can just download the software and then hire a pilot. Obviously, the pilot will be something, I think it's called I forgot the thing, sorry man, like maybe you can put your license and all your credentials and even links to your like your social, let's say your Facebook or your Instagram, wherever you advertise your work. And then a person can actually say, okay, I'm looking for Blessing. Okay, what does Blessing do? Does he do a wedding? Is he good at taking weddings, or is he good at landscape, or is he good at surveying, or is he good at search and rescue, or is he good? I think it's like the same way people order in Uber. That's the same way this could be like maybe in the future. I feel like now we are still growing, I can say. And I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Great. Very good questions, Blessing. And I think those are important questions to consider. And I think just going back to what I was sharing about before was about context. And just like what you shared, Blessing, is your context is different to other people's context. The things you're talking about, you know, when you talk about AVSEC, and these are additional, for everyone, you know, who doesn't know, these are additional kind of trainings that you get to add, or ratings that you can get, or that you should get to add to your existing license. And those in manned aviation, Tawanda Senior and crew, they would know just, you know how that works. But looking at what you've actually said is because of the space you're in, it's harder for you to get into, you know, getting the employment aspect, because now the industry understands what's needed. Okay, it's not enough to have a drone pilot license. And oftentimes we're talking about this to say drone pilot license is the entry level. It's the basic. Okay, that's your entry point. That's your starting line. That's your license to allow you entry into the space. Then you need to add additional skills which help to differentiate you from other people. And if you find that, for example, agriculture has a high barrier to entry, then you need to look at other things or pursue, in other words, spend more money to get these additional ratings to do the work. Now, I wouldn't do that if I'm pursuing a job. Now, if you're saying you want to offer drone services for agriculture, then it makes sense for you to invest your own money in getting those additional things. Now, if you're looking for a job, then I would then pursue looking for an organization that may not necessarily have that, you know, those kind of condition requirements. Plug in, say, I've got this skill set, but we will need to get A, B, C, D, and then they can sponsor that or pay for that and whatever it is as you go. But if you're going to be doing that kind of thing and investing that much, you must be doing that for yourself. Then there's something that you mentioned around BVLOS and fixed wing. Those are given in terms of requirements. I would say if you have the money to invest in getting your BVLOS rating, go for it. Okay, that is an added skill and it will give you an advantage whether you're offering a service to another company or you are deciding to get a job. Okay, because in South Africa, for example, you know, most times, 9 times out of 10, most of the jobs and the operations you're doing are beyond visual line of sight. So BVLOS, for those who don't know, BVLOS means beyond visual line of sight. And BVLOS is the operation of drones beyond the limitation of what your eyes can see. All right, so visual line of sight is the standard rating that you get. So in other words, if you go get your license, they'll give you a visual line of sight rating. Then that gives you a limit of use of your drone to within 500 meters of where you can see with your eyes, or an extension where you have someone else standing at the 500 meter point and allowing you to see up to maybe 1 kilometer. So any other operation outside of that or beyond that is now classified as a BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight. And then you need an additional rating. In other words, more training for that. Then the last thing that you mentioned about the platform where people can sign up, or drone pilots can connect. There are actually a few of those now. People have been developing those. I think there's one, I'm not sure if it's ready yet, but there's someone developing that for Africa. In South Africa, you can look up what's called, I think it's dragonflydrone.co.za. That platform is on there. They've got a section that speaks specifically to what you're talking about. And they allow you can actually go there as a licensed operator, go and sign up. And then, so you can sign up on that platform and then they can probably connect you. I don't know how efficient they are, but there's opportunities like that. I think there should be 2 more in South Africa.
Thank you for that question and answer. Anyone else? We have about 5 minutes, and then we'll close the floor for Q&A. Anyone else? No one?
AJ is raising their hand.
Okay, go ahead, AJ.
Hi again. I just wanted to find out regards the software development. Okay, I'm looking into starting up a study center of where things are done online. So given that it's quite expensive to own a drone and fly it, what software can I possibly research further into using that online, as in to teach online?
To teach people how to fly drones?
Yeah, so
Or-
you slowly, like you get download software to fly a plane or to fly a helicopter. So is there such for drones?
Yes, there are simulators that are available. You can look for DRL simulator. So that stands for Drone Racing League Simulator. So they've got a good simulator. Then DJI. DJI is one of the world's leading drone manufacturers. So DJI has its own simulator as well that you can probably download. I'm not sure on the pricing of that though. Then there are other ones. I don't know the name right now. I'll have to look just through my information, but I can definitely share some other platforms as well. But look at those two for now, and then if you need anything else, I'm available.
Thanks so much.
I just wanted to, it's me again, Tawanda. I just wanted to find out, like, are you doing any educational programs like on TV there in Zimbabwe? Because I remember on TV, they used to have educational sections where they'll be reading storybooks, all that. Are you doing any segments or not yet?
No, we aren't doing anything like that at present. I have had one interview on one of the lifestyle programs, but not something that we initiated. No.
Okay, yeah, we need them to approach you. the youngsters need to know this. This is the future. This is just yes.
Mm.
Thank you.
It really is.
This is definitely the future. I had no idea. I was sleeping on this for so long. And there was an opportunity to learn more. And I didn't think, I guess it's just being so focused on being a fixed wing pilot, my own aviation thing. And now I need to find out more. And I wish we could just have this for another hour and I have so many questions. So where can we stay in touch with you? What can we follow? And where can we get your book? I think you said Amazon. Please we would like to be connected and find more information, especially about the organizations that you're involved in. So we can also get some support or more information from you and the organization.
Okay, great. So I'm on most of the social media platforms. On LinkedIn, I'm quite active there. You can look for me with my name, Tawanda Chihambakwe. Then on other platforms, Instagram, and Facebook, you can use my name. On Instagram, Twitter, my handle is African Drone Professional. I also have a YouTube channel called African Drone Professional where I share information similar to what we're talking about now, but in different topics, so you can connect there. In terms of the book is available on Amazon, so you can get it and download it on Kindle if you have a Kindle, or if you want a hard copy, you can order it from Amazon, or alternatively, you can get in touch with me. We've got hard copies that should be arriving in the next week or two, and we have copies of Drone Professional 1 already in hard copy. We have those, and then Drone Professional 2 will be arriving in a week or two. So that's probably the best way to stay connected with what we're doing. Then in terms of our organizations, you can look for Precision Aerial, again, on all the different platforms. Precision Aerial is our commercial drone company. And under that, we also have what's known as Zimbabwe flying labs. Now, I didn't share a lot about that, but that's a new partnership that we signed on recently. The Flying Labs Network is a global network of drone technology innovation hubs that are now in 35 countries around the world. And we recently secured the license for the Zimbabwe Flying Labs. So our work there is focused on using drones and robotics for social and humanitarian impact. So we're involved in agriculture, disaster management, healthcare delivery, and also environmental kind of support. In that regard, we also do youth training programs as well as business incubation programs. So for example, if you need support, if you then decide you want to set up a drone company, you can come to us and we'll help in terms of support, in terms of advice, guidance. And if you want additional kind of services, training on how to actually process data and information, how to fly your drone and be competent in how to use it. We also have professional training programs that we've developed now for agriculture, for construction infrastructure, as well as for aerial cinematography. So if you want to learn, and this is whether you have a license or don't have a license. So we can then train you on how to actually use drones in that specific context. Yeah, that's us.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely be in touch. I cannot say thank you enough. I can't believe we got all this information for free. It was, and I've like 2 pages full of everything you've been saying. And I'm looking forward to learn more and discover more in the drone industry. Tawanda, thank you. And blessings in your future endeavors. Anything Nyasha and Tawanda Senior would like to add?
Yeah,
I'd like to just thank him. Like you said, I can't believe this is priceless. You can't put a name tag to it. The knowledge, the wisdom, the book. I'm actually going to, after this, I'm going to order my own book. I need to get the hard copy. I need this book, and I'm going to bless other people. I'm going to order for other friends as well. They too need to read. And I was actually just thinking of all the people that I know that need to hear this, and I'm going to get the book for them, and hopefully we'll have another talk with you, Tawanda. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, guys.
All right, thank you, Tawanda, for such an informative and enlightening presentation. I was impressed and I was inspired. A lot of things happened to me. There are a lot of doors in my mind that you opened. I would just like to encourage even everyone who is on this in this meeting. There's a lot of things that you talked about. There are a lot of avenues, of making it in life, making it in aviation that Tawanda highlighted to us. A lot of things you need to look at the applicability. Applicability of drones. On its own, it's a virgin land which is yet to be fully explored. There are a lot of opportunities for you to make it as an entrepreneur. And there's also, maybe when it comes to the hardware stuff, the components of those drones, if my memory serves me right, in Zimbabwe is sitting on vast amounts of lithium, of which most of the batteries are manufactured from lithium. But we can't let anyone, come and take away that opportunity for us as Africans, to open up a lithium battery manufacturing company. We'll end up being like other countries where, just like Mali, they are sitting on a lot of cobalt. Cobalt is also used in the manufacture of batteries which are used in drones, which are used in many other things. Those are opportunities that are just there hanging. What we just need to do is we need to be determined. We need to come up with ideas. We need to pursue them. And there's also one thing that you ingredient of success that you talked about, which is purposeful partnerships. We don't need to be greed. We don't need to say, it's me who was the brainchild of this and it's my idea. And I go, for some of these things to really go very far, you need ideas of other people. You need to create purposeful partnerships. I really want to thank you, Tawanda. I'll be following you a lot. I'll be following you a lot. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to African leaders in aviation for affording us this opportunity to eat of this delicious meal of education and wisdom.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you for having me so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate your platform. And may you continue to do this and inspire and create a platform for people to learn and share information. Thank you.
Thank you.
An absolute pleasure. And everyone else who joined us, this wouldn't be so interesting without all your questions and participation. I hope you learned so much, and I hope to see more Africans take their take of the pie. Is it piece of the pie, piece of the cake? Just get part of this, be part of this innovative industry, like drone. I think drone is a whole other industry inside the aviation industry, really. And I'm really excited. Blessings to you all taking a Saturday afternoon, evening out. Blessings to all of you. Good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.